Sarah's hands trembled as she stared at the pharmacy counter, her 7-year-old daughter Emma clinging to her worn jacket. The fluorescent lights felt harsh against her tired eyes, and the antiseptic smell made her stomach churn with anxiety. Behind the counter, the pharmacist's expression was apologetic but firm as he slid the small white bag just out of reach. "I'm sorry, Mom, but without insurance coverage, the total comes to $347.50, he said softly, his voice barely audible over the hum of the refrigerated medicine cases. Sarah's heart sank like a stone dropped in deep water. $347 might as well have been $3,000. After paying rent, utilities, and groceries from her 2 part-time jobs, she had exactly $23.16 in her checking account. Emma's asthma medication, the inhaler that kept her breathing freely, that allowed her to run and play like other children, sat tantalizingly close yet impossibly far away. "Mommy, are you okay?" Emma whispered, tugging at Sarah's sleeve. Her daughter's big brown eyes, so trusting and innocent, nearly broke Sarah's resolve to stay strong. "Just give me a minute, sweetheart," Sarah managed, her voice catching. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers, scrolling through her contacts. Maybe her sister could help, though she'd already borrowed money twice this month. Maybe her landlord would understand if rent was a few days late. The options swirled in her mind, each one more impossible than the last. Behind her, a line was forming. She could feel the weight of impatient stares, the silent pressure to either pay or move along. A businessman in an expensive suit checked his watch with visible irritation. The elderly woman shifted her weight from foot to foot. Sarah felt heat creep up her neck, embarrassment mixing with desperation in a toxic cocktail that made her lightheaded. "I'm so sorry," she told the pharmacist, her voice barely a whisper. "Could you possibly hold this until tomorrow? I just need to." "Of course, Mom. We'll keep it set aside for 24 hours, he replied with genuine kindness, but Sarah knew tomorrow wouldn't bring a miracle. Tomorrow would bring the same empty bank account, the same impossible choice between her daughter's health and keeping a roof over their heads. As she turned to leave, Emma started coughing out the dry, harsh sound that preceded her asthma attacks. Sarah's chest tightened with panic. Without the medicine, these episodes would only get worse. She knelt down, rubbing Emma's back in small circles, whispering reassurances she didn't believe herself. "Mom," a deep, gentle voice spoke from behind her. Sarah looked up to see a man in his 50s, distinguished but not flashy, wearing a simple navy sweater and khakis. His graying hair was neatly combed, and his eyes held a warmth that immediately put her at ease. He had been standing in line behind them, she realized, witnessing their entire ordeal. "I couldn't help but overhear," he said, his voice low so only she could hear. "Would you mind if I helped with the medicine?" Sarah's first instinct was to refuse. Pride, that stubborn companion of the struggling, rose in her throat. She'd worked since she was 16, had put herself through community college while pregnant, had never asked for handouts. But looking down at Emma, whose coughing had intensified, pride seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Say yes," he replied simply. "Let me help." He stepped forward to the counter, where the pharmacist was watching the interaction with curious eyes. "I'd like to pay for this young lady's prescription," the man said, pulling out his wallet. "Sir, you don't understand how Sarah started," but he held up a gentle hand. "I understand enough," he said. "I have a daughter too. I know what it means to want to give them everything, especially their health." The pharmacist processed the payment with quiet efficiency, though Sarah noticed his eyebrows raise slightly at the man's credit card. As he handed over the medicine bag, Emma's coughing began to subside, as if she somehow knew help was coming. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks despite her efforts to hold them back. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay anything," the man replied, gently placing the medicine in her hands. "Just take care of your beautiful daughter." As they walked toward the pharmacy exit, Emma tugged on the man's sweater. "Mister, are you an angel?" she asked with the unfiltered honesty only children possess. He chuckled softly, his own eyes glistening. "No, sweetheart, just someone who believes we should look out for each other." Outside the pharmacy, Sarah finally found her voice. "At least tell me your name so I can thank you properly." "David," he replied. "David Morrison." The name tickled something in Sarah's memory, but she was too overwhelmed with gratitude to place it. They exchanged a few more words before David excused himself, explaining he had an appointment to keep. As his sleek but understated sedan pulled away, Sarah finally administered Emma's medicine, watching color return to her daughter's cheeks. It wasn't until they got home that Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Chen, solved the mystery while they watched the evening news together. "That's him," Mrs. Chen exclaimed, pointing at the television screen. "That's the man who helped you." On screen, David Morrison was being interviewed about his pharmaceutical company's new initiative to provide free medications to underprivileged families. The reporter mentioned that his company had just gone public, making him one of the wealthiest men in the state. "The CEO of Morrison Pharmaceuticals helped us," Sarah breathed, sinking onto her couch in disbelief. "Mommy, what's a CEO?" Emma asked, curled up beside her with her favorite stuffed elephant. "Someone very important, baby. Someone very important who has a very kind heart." The next morning, Sarah found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Inside was a letter on company letterhead and a check that made her gasp out loud. The letter, written in David's careful handwriting, explained that his company was launching a patient assistance program, and he hoped she would consider being their first recipient. The check would cover Emma's medications for the entire year. But it was the postscript that brought fresh tears to her eyes. Emma was right. Sometimes angels come in the form of everyday people who choose to care. "Thank you for reminding me why I started this company in the first place." Sarah held the letter to her chest and looked over at Emma, who was breathing easily, playing with her toys on the living room floor. In a world that often felt cold and disconnected, one stranger's kindness had changed everything. And somewhere across town, she imagined David Morrison was sitting in his office, remembering his own daughter and feeling grateful that he had the power to make a difference in a little girl's life. The ripples of that moment in the pharmacy would spread far beyond one prescription. David's patient assistance program would help thousands of families, and Sarah would eventually become its program coordinator, having completed her degree with the stability that David's help provided. But even years later, what she would remember most was not the money or the medicine, but the quiet dignity with which one human being had reached out to help another. In a checkout line at a small-town pharmacy, love had worn the simple disguise of a stranger who chose to care.